Grumble, grumble. Hey everyone, it's the Grumpy Meeple, and I am coming back at you with my first gameplay video for Tanares Adventures. Today we're going to be trying to figure out if we can learn how to play this game based off of the pretty complicated set of instructions you're given in the core box. Just a heads up, I'm sick, so I might sound like shit. Deal with it. I needed to get this out so that somebody will watch it. So if I put it out in 2 weeks, then nobody will watch it. And I will be trying not to use, so this is the support content document that Dragori Games put out as a PDF. It's a beautiful document, to be honest. It has some incredible detail in it. It's kind of the kind of thing that some of this I feel like should have probably been in the box, but it also, among many other very useful things like exact pictures of how to store everything, it has this detailed game flow chart that is meant to walk you through how to start these tutorial quests. I'm gonna try to do this without referencing this if I can, just because, again, and this is the thing that these publishers forget, like, every single time, is just that not everybody is hawkishly watching your fucking Facebook page, right? Or even the updates in your Kickstarter. So there will be a subset of users who will get this game, have no idea this exists, and have to learn it only from this. And I want to see if that's possible and see how it kind of maps to that document. So we're going to start here with the quick guide, because it says it's a quick guide, so you would obviously start there. It's not quite what I was hoping for, though. Chronicles of Drunagor is maybe the only game I've seen that's actually done this right, where they give you a guide that literally walks you through every aspect of character creation, setting up a map, setting up the first quest, attacking, moving your character, to the point where when I played through it, I didn't even realize that it was actually taking me through the initial quest. And so when I went back to play the first quest, I noticed that, you know, the content was the same. And that was like the best tutorial I've ever seen for a game. And I was hoping for something similar to with this. This really is more like a reference sheet. It's like just like it says, it's not really a quick start. It's just like a quick guide, really. It's just like, here's how attacks work. Here's how you prep a hero, blah, blah, blah. So right off the bat, it tells you to begin a campaign for a learn as you play experience, which is what I'm looking for. Open the city book. You'll be instructed to read this quick start before your first fight. So we are going to toss some of this stuff aside. We're going to pull the city book in. The city book is huge. Oh God, slightly bent on the back. No. Ooh, what is this? I probably don't want to know. All right, so here we go. The campaign begins here. Do not choose your heroes yet. If there will be multiple players in the party, we recommend one of them to go through the rulebook before the first session. That player will consolidate their knowledge and lead the other players during this introduction. All right, here's the history and setting, which is another thing that's a little underplayed in this, I guess. So they put out an art book in Tanaris in Arena the Contest. It's like a 200-page long document filled with incredible art and lore and all this stuff, like reams and reams of lore, not only about the world and the setting and everything, but the characters, the individual characters themselves. It's an amazing document, and I would like for more of that lore to make its way into these rule books, which it really doesn't. And you might say that that's because Arena of the Contest is already out there, and that maybe that rule book contains that kind of detailed lore breakdown. But again, this calling this an expansion is a little bit of a cheat. It's barely an expansion. It really is more its own unique thing. And so if you're coming to it for the first time, you're not going to have a huge amount of backstory on what exactly happened and why you're doing any of this shit. But it breaks down here: Tanaris, history and settings. Massive bloodshed will be punished with natural disasters, such as the Malcrothian curse. So the idea of this world is that for generations, there were these massive armed conflicts like you would see in The Lord of the Rings or in Game of Thrones or something like that, where people were slaughtering each other on a large scale, armies clashing against each other. And basically the gods of this universe declared that, yo, that ain't gonna happen anymore. And if it does, we're gonna unleash this thing called the Malcrothian curse on you, which basically says that if you engage in large scale armed combat, we're gonna fuck your world up. So we're gonna explode volcanoes, send dragons to ravage your cities, flood you, whatever it is. And I'm not 100% sure, again, because this doesn't really explain what the Malcrothian curse is. It just refers to it. I'm not 100% sure if the dragons specifically are responsible for all that or not. But that's the idea: is that the dragons are like a means of punishing large scale combat in this universe. The first catastrophe was almost 2,000 years ago. A tsunami and earthquake decimated life in the western provinces, and the eternal storm began. It wrecked all ships that ventured too far into the storm oceans. The last world war was waged 180 years ago. Most of the world's armies and its most advanced kingdoms perished around Arcana, the capital of the extinct mystical kingdom. The region turned into an uninhabitable, aberration-riddled wasteland. And so the idea is, and the conceit of the original game Arena of the Contest, is that to avoid these large-scale combat situations that would destroy everyone, the rulers of the world came together and basically said, okay, we're not gonna settle our differences through war anymore. We're gonna settle them in the arena. So we're gonna choose champions, and those champions are gonna fight to the death, and whoever wins, their city or country or whatever is declared the victor and gets whatever the stakes of the battle were. So that's where the idea of the arena comes from, and the PvP side of the game, which is really cool. It's cool that they contextualize it to that extent. And so in Arena of the Contest, the PvP side is a big part of the game. You could even maybe call it the focus of the game, and the campaign was just kind of a thrown-on thing that went over really well, which is what led to Tanares Adventures. And so it's really cool that they created lore for this universe, even when they were thinking that it was mostly, just going to be a team-on-team battle game. All right, it says grab adventure card A. You may read chapter 11. Okay, so let's just do this shit like step by fucking step. I've got my adventure card deck here. You can see they all have a big letter in the left-hand corner, and there is card A. The Fisherman's Wharf. If neglected, you cannot begin the campaign. Context: your team has just finished a dungeon raid. It's time to return to your base, located at the city of Fisherman's Wharf, and split your loot. Expectation: Learn who you are and what is going on in the world. When you're ready to begin this chapter, head to the first adventure chapter of the journal, Chapter A, as indicated by the letter on the front part of this adventure card. That's cool. So these cards map to chapters in this book. So as I go, I'm just going to reference this thing to make sure that I'm doing that it is accurate. So it did push me to here, book page 2. Although, oh really, I guess that is page 2. How the fuck is that page 2? The cover is page 1. Fucking weird. Adventure card A. And then the journal page. Okay, yeah, so I suppose you can get started with just this stuff. It just is off-putting to me that your quick start guide immediately tells you to reference some other book. It's like, isn't that the point of the quick start guide? To get me started quickly? But what they're trying to do is they're trying to teach you how to navigate this, fairly complex campaign system. And so they're sending you from book to book in ways that they don't even do during the normal campaigns, just so that you see the books and understand what the fuck they're for. Okay. So next, we come to the journal. A table of contents, which is very nice. It's wire bound, which is very, very, very nice. We have here just some basic rule stuff. Running out of adventure cards at the end of quest, follow with extreme care all quest chapter instructions. You can never get back an adventure card you already played and discarded. Welcome, adventurer. This journal contains more than 40 adventure chapters that are not numbered. Instead, letters represent them. They correspond with the letters found in adventure cards, one in which you must decide to play at the beginning of every journey phase. So this is really cool. It's like a branching narrative. So typically, you're going to have a choice of what you do next. And that's where you get between those kinds of choices, your character choices, which there are like 40 characters you can choose from if you bought everything, and your results if you win or lose campaign or quests. There's an incredible amount of variation built into this system. You could replay it and kind of not have the same experience, at least not the exact same experience. You will play 22 of these adventures during the course of a whole campaign. Okay. And there's far, far more than 22 adventure cards, so. At the beginning of adventures, you find an alternative, such as the fast action mode. It takes you to a section that summarizes one of the chapter's multiple. Okay, so I don't really think we need to follow all this for now. We just need to do what the card told us to do, which is head to the first adventure chapter of the journal. Which is page 5. Okay. So this is a little annoying. It says right at the top here, in bold and in red, read chapter 11B of the rule book. Step 2, head to the adventure chapter of the journal indicated in the adventure card chosen. I see what they're trying to do here, but it's super fucking annoying. This feels like a fail to me a little bit. It's just like, how many fucking books am I gonna pick up and read one goddamn line before I get pushed to some other fucking book. Adventure chapter of the journal indicated in the adventure card. What? Step 2. And see, it's super. Step 2, based on the adventure chapter of the journal. So see, it's telling me to go to step 2 here, which just explains what the adventure card is again. Choose one of the available adventure cards at the beginning of each journey phase. They brief you about the expected mission and give the story some context. Okay, well, I've done that. Am I meant to read the rest of this? Or am I now meant to go back to this? This is very, very odd. See, it's almost like you don't choose your heroes yet. Okay, well, let's try to follow it as it's written, and all it told me to do is read that one thing and push me back to this journal page. And if this doesn't go well, hopefully Dragori sees it and fucking comes up with a better way of doing this in the future. Previously, this kind of box is always skippable. Okay, thank you. In the vacuum of power following the last World War, a powerful man started making alliances with the evolutionists, the world's leading religion, and the nobles. He unified the continent and became the emperor. To prevent new Malkrothian curses, the emperor forbids the gathering of many armed people with common interests. Conflicts of interest must be resolved peacefully or in the arena, where a few fighters called heroes sometimes decide the fate of whole nations. The only army in the world is the Emperor's Iron Hand. It is mainly soldiers who suffer a magical psychosurgery to lose their free will. They obey only orders from sentient higher-ranked officers, usually some of the nobles and other imperialists. So, that's kind of dark. I mean, this is a pretty brutal dictatorship, really. You got one guy who has the only army, which I don't even, like, what is the point of that army? If he unleashes it, it will result in a Malkrothian curse, because it's not like he's going to go to some other country and slaughter people, and they're not going to fight back, right? So, I don't know, it's a little weird, but okay. It's nighttime. You keep away from the main roads. One of the 2 moons is shining bright. Foes have been pursuing you after a successful adventuring day, and you think you've lost them. Grab 40 cubes, 3 copies of the 8 different colors except black. Okay. I got my cubes just sitting off the side here. What the fuck is this? 40 cubes. 5 copies. Okay, so that's my pen. I was sitting here thinking to myself, yo, your math is fucked. Also, couldn't they just tell you grab all the cubes except the black? I don't know, those things work. I'm pretty sure it's all these fucking things. So. I got lots of cubes here. What will you do? Each player must just choose a different option. Oh, okay, they're trying to teach you. So everybody has to choose a different option. Like, this is still so weird. I don't have character sheets or anything. Oh, okay. Each player must choose a different option. Okay. A, B, C, D, and E. Okay, so there are 5, so you do have some choice there. You can rest. Your party depends on every ounce of strength you can spare, and your muscles are sore from today's fighting. You can keep watch. You never know when your enemies might catch up to you. You can prepare a meal for everyone. That ought to lift their spirits for tomorrow. You can get away from the others to have some alone time and collect your thoughts, as the party relies on you for a good part of their strategies. Or you can go hunting. In the best case scenario, you bring back good food. In the worst case scenario, you find enemy scouts and take them down before they report on your position. Okay, so I think I'm gonna rest, keep watch. Prepare a meal and go hunting. When all players are done choosing, go to 2. Assign the following components according to each player's choice in the previous section. Player A, that is the player who chose option A in section 1, if any, gains 1 yellow cube. Okay, so we'll call that player A's pile. Player B gains 1 gray cube. C, yeah, prepare meal, 1 green cube and 1 brown cube. And player E gains 2 blue cubes. The wasteland was spreading at an accelerated pace and threatening to engulf the world. Scholars discovered that it is avatar dragons, frenzied by the scent of massive bloodshed, as described in the curse's decree, that produced the catastrophes. When slayed, the disaster's lingering consequences cease. The Wasteland heroes found and slayed Theria, blue avatar dragon of thunder. That ended the internal storm. Fisherman's Wharf, the largest city by the Storm Ocean's coast, began to thrive. The next day, you reach the safety of Fisherman's Wharf. You meet in a tavern to drink and split your loot. Each of you tries to keep the silent composure of a mighty hero who doesn't need to advertise their feats, but your tongues progressively loosen as the barmaid brings you endless spirit refills. The inauguration is today, she says, out of breath between each round, of the arena of future. Visitors from all over the continent, even the Emperor is there. Customers see heroes such as yourselves and call their friends over. Good for reputation. As long as you're sitting there, I will keep serving you, free of charge. She winks and disappears into the crowd. When you notice that evenly splitting your loot is impossible, the bragging becomes inevitable. Which of the following would most likely correspond to what you would have done in an adventure? Each player must choose a different option. A. Keeping you alive was tiresome. You should all be thankful I was there to heal your wounds, or none of us would be here. B. If not for my splitting that ogre's skull open before he even knew we were there, imagine what he'd have done to us. Okay, so this is cool. So it's like guiding you through a way of picking which archetype you play as. Now, these wire-bound books are great, but you also do have to be careful with them. I don't want to rip the pages. C. That's only because the distraction I created and the intelligence I gathered was good enough. Otherwise, none of you would have been able to do your jobs. D. We were outnumbered and would have been overwhelmed if not for my draining the life from those goblins. And as if that weren't enough, I directed their energy to the orb that opened the sealed gate. E. You only had time to do any of these things because I was single-handedly holding all the goblins at the door. Okay. So... I think... I would go with A, B, C, and D. So player A gains two green cubes. Player B gains 2 blue cubes. Player C gains 1 yellow and 1 orange cube. And player D gains 1 purple cube. Keep these cubes. Players must not discard them or give them to other players. A bard plays a paced melody while singing a fresh epic tale about the end of the wasteland. The bard doesn't have the insider knowledge you do as heroes, but their verses tell a reasonably accurate story. The wasteland heroes also slayed Zaramag, the black dragon that put an end to the wasteland's toxic mists. I believe this is recapping the events from the Arena of the Contest campaign, the PvE campaign. Zarmag's spirit had been entrapped by Dilsigar, former Ironhead captain and leader of the cult of the Shadow Wing. He desired to rule the world on its wings. He fled the heroes of the wasteland, one of whom, Sidura, was appointed as the new captain. With the end of the storm, the Empire built a second Imperial Palace and the Arena of Future on top of a hill in Fisherman's Wharf. The glasses vibrate on top of the tables. Outside the tavern, you hear explosions and shouting. "Oh my," the barmaid exclaimed, a hand over her panting chest. "What is going on in that arena? It seems that all our taxes were spent on useless drums and wizards to put on a freak show." Most of the crowd instinctively leaves the tavern to see what is happening. After a while, the excited shouting becomes terrified screaming. You see people running outside, stumbling over each other. Before you can react, sinister figures, weapons drawn, approach the tavern. Each player must choose a different option. Grab your weapon and charge. Hide behind the counter to surprise attack them from behind. Turn the table over to defend from their arrows and get ready to fight. Help the barmaid and bard escape, or destroy the structure holding the kegs together so they'll collapse onto the invaders. Okay. So I suppose I would choose A, B, C, and E. Assign the following components. Player A gains 2 red cubes. I'm assuming what's going to happen here is at the end of this, they're going to give you like a tally. Like if you have 2 red cubes, 2 green cubes, blah, 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 then you're a blah, blah, blah. Which is cool. I kind of wish I could just choose my own characters, but we'll see what happens. Maybe I'm wrong. Player B gains 1 orange cube. No, did I choose B? I gotta help the bard escape though, right? Player C gains 2 gray cubes. And player D gains a green cube. You beat the enemies and leave the tavern after helping Warfers and tourists escape. Outside, the city burns. It seems like there are many more of these enemies invading town. You decide to spread out and gather resources and information about the invasion. Oh, and here you go. A, B, C, D, E. So it's showing you the types. On the day of the Arena of Future's inauguration, war vessels appeared on the horizon, revealing that you are not alone in the world. Another civilization came from the far side of the storm oceans, a humanoid species with gray skin and white hair called Kemet. Each player must choose a different option. A, try to find survivors and mobilize them against the enemy army. See, this is weird doing this alone because I'm just like doing it sequentially. B, go to the old blacksmith shop and grab as many weapons and pieces of armor as you can. C, stay with the rescued civilians and protect them while the rest of the party scouts ahead. D, climb the tallest building around to assess the situation. And E, sneak around and try to capture an enemy to interrogate. Alright, so maybe I'll try to mix it up a little bit. Well, no, isn't that the idea? I don't know. This is kind of a weird exercise. So I'm going to do A, B, C, and D. 2 brown cubes. And 1 red cube. 1 gray cube. And D gains 1 brown cube and 1 purple cube. Your help is significant, but ultimately pointless. There's not much the heroes can do against an army. You need to run, head towards the city's east gates and flee. Unfortunately, you've already drawn too much attention. A small crowd gathers around you, the best protection they could find. The pack stands out in the road, right between the Arena of Future and the Imperial Palace. Before you can retreat, you're surrounded by Kemet. This is likely a fight to the death. With no time for strategic schemes, you each decide to face the enemy that behaves most like you, so that you can fend them off in a contest of similar skills for as long as possible, while the rest of the populace makes a run for it. Each player must choose a different option. No one is stronger than you. Let them come. You're serving death. Face the barbarian. Your magic powers are unmatched. You can support allies and dispel enemy spells. Face their necromancer. You've never lost a battle of attrition and hope to keep your streak alive, as resilience is your middle name. Face their warrior. Your game is all about strategy, cunning, and dirty fighting. Face their spy. No one is more accurate or nimble than you. Face their archer. Alright, so I guess player A faces the barbarian. Player 2 See, I don't like I don't really care for this. I like all the text and I like what they're trying to do, and I imagine that this would be fun with 4 people, but for a solo experience, this is fucking weird. Because I'm having to pretend to be 4 different people with like different strategies and shit. There are no red cubes left, so nothing for player A. Player B gains 1 purple cube and 1 green cube. C. Gains 1 yellow cube. Player D gains an orange and brown. It's also confusing because they refer to it as player A, B, C, D, E, but that's not really accurate. What it is it's player 1, 2, 3, 4, and they're making choice A, B, C, D, or E. So that's a little bit confusing too. These guys are not native English speakers as far as I understand, or at least not, they're not based in the US. And so there's a lot of little weird stuff like that, which is actually usually pretty charming. I can't remember if I've talked about this yet, but the trailer for Tanares Adventures on Kickstarter is like my favorite trailer ever. I love that trailer. I love the music. I love the voiceover. I like quote it to myself sometimes just while I'm sitting around waiting for this shit to show up over the months. But it's funny because it's filled with all sorts of slight grammatical oddities that a native speaker wouldn't make, you know. And so I feel like this book maybe suffers, and all of the printed material kind of suffers from that same thing. There's like some weird flow to the way words are kind of ordered and whatnot, but mostly it's charming. In this case, I would have called that something different. I would have called it Choice A gains 2 red cubes. Blah, blah. The fight is brutal. Your abilities prove superior, but you're outnumbered. One of the Kemet gets through your defenses, and just as you're about to get hit, a blast of thunder knocks them down. You look up. The sky is a clear blue. The origins of the thunder was a tall woman in white and blue shining armor, heading a squad of Iron Hand soldiers on top of the hill where the arena stands. She comes to you, shouting instructions to the populace. It seems that the east gate is near and still open. You follow the pack. Hold on, she shouts, stopping you in your tracks. I am Sedina, the Iron Hand captain. The Empire and its people could use your help. Please introduce yourselves. And here we get to, I assume, the part where you get to choose your class. And put some components in front of you, other than a bunch of random cubes. Okay. Choosing heroes. With the Imperial army in shambles and the Emperor missing, the people's last shred of hope is trusting that you... So, okay. When did the Emperor go missing? That's kind of a big detail that they have not mentioned as of yet. That seems very odd. Anyways. The people's last shred of hope is trusting that you, the world's mightiest fighters, can stand your ground against an army of thousands. Read Chapter 1 of the Rulebook, Introduction to Heroes. And again, I'm just going to check this one. See, this is really weird too. This detailed flow is supposed to walk you through exactly what you do in this first tutorial mission or whatever. But there's no mention of going back to the rule book. According to this flow, the next thing you would do is read the quest guide. You know, maybe I'm missing some nuance of how this fucking spreadsheet basically is supposed to work, or like fucking workflow is ordered, but it seems like they could have used another QA pass on this shit, particularly from somebody like me, or you know, really just anybody who's like paying attention and obsessively detail oriented, because this is really fucking confusing. I can't imagine being just some random guy who bought this, you know, who doesn't hang out on Instagram and Facebook and board game YouTube and isn't used to this kind of shit from other games. It would be very confusing. But anyways, read chapter 1 of the rulebook, Introduction to Heroes. Heroes and you, team allies. A hero is the character you, the player, control. Through the hero, you will accomplish objectives, defeat enemies, and make decisions on and off the board. All quests must be played by one team. A team is a group of exactly 4 heroes. All heroes in the team are each other's allies. Not all allies are heroes. Sometimes other characters may join the party. E.g., a combatant you will need to save or escort, an NPC, or a commander's companion. Hero card. The hero card represents each hero's unique identity. It informs your set of off-combat abilities used in story events and city phases. Those are the stats at the bottom of the card. Your unique passive power, triggered during attacks, and your combat roll, which determines your skill pad and by extension stats. Combat rolls. A classification that determines the hero's tendencies, stats, and attacks, indicating the optimal function your character would perform in combat. There are 8 combat roles, each with its own color and symbol. Heroes of the same role share identical stats. Although the combat role gives a clue about how a hero would fight, keep in mind that heroes have exclusive attacks and passive power effects that make them all vastly diverse from all others, as both their powers and their optimal behavior on the board depend on these unique features. Teams cannot have more than one hero of the same combat role. Special role. Dragori has already released more than 50 different heroes. Some of them were made with particular powers, stats, and passives that don't fit into any of the roles above. These belong to the special combat role. You may use these heroes to have fun in unique compositions, but you cannot start a campaign with them. Okay, so you've got it broken into 4 archetypes, basically. Offensive roles, defensive roles, strategic roles, and support roles. You get the Brute, close combat attacker who cares more about dealing extra damage against isolated targets than about its own safety. And the Shooter. No one deals more damage from range, but they're the easiest to die. This includes, obviously, from the pictures of this absolutely gigantically breasted character. I know that bothers some people. I am not one of those people. She's a mage, so this includes mages too, even though it says Shooter. You've got tanks. This guy looks exactly like this guy right here. Let's see if we can get into there. Looks exactly like fucking Jaime Lannister, but whatever. Die Hard. You got the tank, Die Hard leader who tries to remain close to enemies to protect strategically important teammates. Bruisers. Solid all-around melee fighters and protectors. Jack of all trades, master of none, but oftentimes better than masters of one. Then you've got the strategic roles. The Tactician, versatile close combat expert that excels at exploiting positioning to debuff and disrupt enemies. And the Controller, ranged master of chaos who manipulates the battle from a safe distance while causing powerful adverse effects to enemies. And then you've got the support role. You got healers, low damage supporter who is greatly efficient in making teammates last longer, and contrary to popular belief, they're moderately difficult to kill. And commanders, specialists in buffs. They can deal moderate damage through a companion they unleash on the battlefield. Okay. I'm just trying to figure out introduction to heroes. Should I keep reading, or is that the introduction to the heroes? Because it seems to me that they get into some other shit here now. Combat stats. While attacks and effects represent what a hero can do, stats represent what your hero is, such as how much they can normally move, how likely it is to defend or evade an enemy attack, defense, how much damage it can take, HP, etc. Hero stats are found in skill pads, villain stats are found in villain cards. Max hit points. Your hit points indicate how much damage you can take. If your hit points drop to 0, you die. Hit point track. Slots, HP token. The HP track runs around the main board and has numbered slots from 0 to 70. Sadly, I do not have the main board because not only have they not shipped me the core game yet, but I haven't even gotten a tracking notification for it. So I don't even know how far this gameplay can really go. I have 3D terrain, the Warlock tile system that I'm planning on using to build the dungeon. So I kind of don't need that, and I can proxy up some way of tracking hit points with dice, 20-sided dice or something like that. But send me my fucking game so that I can cover it on my channel. Yeah, combatants begin quests with full HP, put their HP token on slots that correspond to their max HP stat. Moving the token around the track. Damage, heal. See, this has nothing to do with an introduction to a hero. Does it? Like, what the fuck? Let me look at this one. Yeah, then each player must choose a hero. I'll move on from this for now, because I feel like what they were trying to do is give you like a broad overview of what the hero classes are, which, well done, that is accomplished. But now we can, I think we're in a position where we can choose our heroes, and we don't necessarily need to learn about how HP is tracked. Then each player must choose a hero. Restrictions: you must not pick Magenta, she may be unlocked later, or any hero from the special combat role. Each hero must belong to a different combat role. You will encounter severe inconsistencies in the story if you pick Gazini, Cordal, Sedura, or the Emperor. Yeah, that would be weird. Didn't they just say the Emperor has gone missing out of nowhere with no context and no explanation in this lengthy preamble? Also weird. So they give you some recommendations. Build a balanced group that includes one resilient character to operate on the front lines. Well, they're giving that to you as a recommendation, but they're also saying you have to pick one person from each of these archetypes, which means you have to pick a protector. So you're gonna pick somebody who is tanky. I don't know. Tanker Bruiser, one focused chiefly on dealing damage. Brute or Shooter, one skillful strategic character, controller or tactician, and one character that can heal and give support, heal, or commander. If you're learning the game, we recommend you choose a healer instead of a commander, as it requires knowledge of fewer rules. The choices you've made thus far have highlighted a few of your personality traits. If you wish to continue playing by this style, pick a combat role for which you have the most cubes. But remember, you are free to choose any hero you want. Okay. So that's that's kind of cool. And now we've seen this whole little system play out. I could see how if you had multiple people, I don't know that you need to abstract it out into these cubes. It's not like people who like playing mages aren't going to pick the magey kind of choices and also the magey character, but whatever. Okay, so Red is for brutes, blue is for shooters. Striker, you like to be simple and efficient, dealing damage and eliminating foes from your path. Green is for healer, and brown is support. You like to stay back and support your team. Orange is tactician and purple is controller. Like to outsmart your enemies, apply powerful debuffs, and manipulate the circumstances. And gray is tank and yellow is bruiser. You enjoy wreaking havoc on the front lines, withstanding enemy blows to protect your team. That's definitely me. I play tank in World of Warcraft Classic. Also, it is recommended to balance ranged and melee characters so you can cover the entire field in various situations. Brute, bruiser, tank, and tactician are melee, while shooter, controller, healer, and commander are ranged. Your team must have 4 heroes. If you have fewer than 4 players, choose simplified versions of heroes to complete the team. Notice following the restrictions and recommendations noted above. These simplified heroes are comrades. Find their rules in Chapter 6 of the rulebook. I'm not going to do that. I don't want to play as comrades. So now we got to pick characters. We got this giant deck of character cards. We are severely limited right now because we don't have all the components. So I don't have the miniature for Count Blake. So I kind of got to figure out the ones that I do have. There must be a list. It doesn't tell you on the cards. Because I'm not 100% sure, actually. Okay, so I know where there's a list. So one of the things that's handy about this very long PDF document is that if you scroll down far enough, you're gonna find a breakdown of every single tray and where everything goes. So this will tell me which characters I do have, actually. Yeah, see, so my choices are limited. I've got a red guy, a green guy, purple guy, a yellow guy, a brown guy, and an orange guy, but I don't have a blue. I'm sure there's another color that I'm missing too. There should be 2 colors I'm missing. So, whatever. So we've got Lane of the Valkyrie. Yeah, so we've got all the commanders. I know that. That's these guys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11 is Herodotus, the Fallen Titan. The art on these is amazing. It's kind of one of the things that I miss about those larger pads is that big art of your character. Really, really cool. We've got Nyx, I know. There's that character. Love that art. I think... Oh, magenta, you can't choose. Oh, I do think there are some guardians in here. Don't worry about that in a minute. Where the fuck is... I did, okay. There's Herodotus. Nyx, Yemi, the succubus of envy, and Nero, the pyromancer. Two yellow characters that we have are Lord Wraith the Shadow Knight and Anariel the Sword Mage. I already pulled out Anariel. That's a tough choice because they're both really cool. Did I pull him out too? Yep, I pulled him out. 17, Magenta. We know we can't play as her. 19 is Grigori the Guardian. One annoying thing too, it's just like these little things drive me crazy. All the classes have their own unique miniature color except for the Guardians. It's gray, which means it's impossible to differentiate from the bad guys out of the box. All right, so we got Grigori the Guardian. Okay, so I think that's it. So these are the characters that I have the ability to choose from. Bruiser, controller. These guys are kind of picks together. It's like if you want a potential tank options and a lot of commander options. I can barely even put a party together with the stuff that comes in this core box. So I basically have to take either him or one of the commanders, which they tell you not to take. So I'm gonna take Herodotus the Fallen Titan, which is very cool anyways. I'm gonna take Nyx for my healer. And then to decide the rest, we're gonna go to another document, which is the Hero Compendium. But we also need their ability cards. Because we want to see what their actual attacks and such are. I don't want to just like randomly pick. There's Nyx. There's the Pyromancer. Pyromancer really doesn't sound like much of a support character, but Lord Wraith, that is really incredible art. It's very difficult not to pick him. There's Herodotus. Sword Mage. God, the art just sells you on the characters. I'm like sitting here and I'm like, Lord Wraith is like the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. There's Anariel the Sword Mage with that bitchin' handful of Flame, and I've always had a thing for sword mages. This is all the controllers, which we decided, at least for this first playthrough, we're not going to use. So that goes back there. Already decided on those. So the first thing we have to do is decide between the controllers. So we've got Vemi, the succubus of envy. She's got a passive called Despair, which triggers when a target is in range 4 of you. First hit of your turn. I don't really know what that means. First hit of your turn. All right, so if a target is in range 4 of you on the first hit of your turn, then a hero charges 2 skill tokens. Okay, so that lets you charge faster. And again, these are her abilities for the settlement phase. And then in terms of her attacks, she's got 2 normals and 2 specials. Blood Petals. Range of 8 squares, hits 1 enemy, 11 damage plus effects. You can either move the target, or if you rolled an even natural number, fatigued target is bleeding 2, ends if used. Okay. And she's got Fatal Kiss. 8 squares, 1 enemy, 9 damage, plus the effect another enemy takes damage equal to half your natural roll, round up. Okay, that's cool. And they all have different, I assume they all have different miss values. Yeah, and it looks like the miss value is the same for her, at least, for each card. She does 5 residual damage. So the idea is when you whiff in this game, it's not a total loss because you still do some residual damage. And then for her special abilities, Wheel of Fortune, 8 squares, 1 enemy, benefits. Before striking, make 2 guesses about the roll. $13 or $14 plus, and odd or even. Less than 13 or 14 plus, so over, under 13, I guess. And odd or even. This thing does 20 damage plus the effect, so 20 damage no matter what. Effect: for each correct guess, a different enemy takes 10 damage. Does not apply against the target. And if you miss, you get 15 damage. So this has the ability to like burst to other users in it, or other enemies, and it doesn't say anything about range relating to that, so I don't know how that works. Or you can do the mysterious box. That's kind of a funny. Okay. 8 squares, 1 enemy, 18 damage plus the effect. If the roll was odd, heal 18. An ally. See, this is where I'm talking about, like, the wording is weird. It should say heal an ally 18 or revive a dead ally, but it says heal 18 an ally or revive a dead ally with 15 hit points and no special attacks. Oh wow, that's powerful. If it was even, deal 18 damage to another enemy or deal 4 damage to all enemies and move them 3, including the target. Okay. Kind of interesting. I'm not in love with her right off the bat. And then we've got Nero the Pyromancer. His passive is called Despair. Trigger: if the target is in range 4 of you, so those triggers are the same. Target is in range 4 of you on the on your first hit of the turn. Effect, deal +2 damage and move for the target. So her passive is a buff to her allies. His is straight damage and movement, which could also translate into damage. Or could really be useful in terms of positioning, setting up, you know, the next attack and so forth. So that's interesting. Two normals, 2 specials. Path of Ashes. 8 squares, 1 enemy is 11 damage plus effects. Effect, move to an enemy in 5 of you. In range 5 of you. So move an enemy in range, move an enemy within 5 squares, 2 spaces. Or choose an enemy. It takes 5 damage the first time it moves orthogonally on its move action. Ends if used. That's really weird. Firestorm, 8 squares. Range, 1 enemy, 12 damage, plus deal 4 damage to all other enemies in odd number coordinates within 8 of you. What the fuck? Right, so the board is laid out and it has coordinates on it. That's interesting. Very random. Flame Prison, 8 squares, 1 enemy, 24 damage, plus permanent effect, choose an enemy. Whenever you make a primary attack, move 3 this enemy towards your attack's first target. The wording on some of this stuff is really weird. What does that mean, attack's first target? He doesn't have any multi-target attacks, at least not. I guess they do have their class abilities, but. And then Burning Sigil. 8 squares, 1 enemy, 20 damage plus effect. Effect permanent. Whenever the target is on an even numbered square anywhere on the grid, it is exposed 3 and vulnerable 3. Both once per turn. I don't really love either of those. Do I have to take one of these fuckers? I don't want to take the commander, so I guess I do. I'll take her. And we'll look at the other 2 characters once we're done sorting all this shit out. We already know we're not going to go with a commander, even though I really want to. Now we've got my favorite archetype, which is the bruisers and the tanks and such. Start with Anariel, the Sword Mage. Retribution, she's a bruiser. Trigger, at the start of your turn, there is at least 1 enemy in range 2 of you. See again, like the wording. Fuck, man, get somebody, send this shit to people like me and just say, hey, can you read this and make sure that it reads like a human being wrote it? This reads like Chat. This doesn't even read like Chat G. They could have put this into Chat GPT. I don't know if you guys have been following this whole AI craziness, but yo, Jagori, next time you make a game, feed all of your text into Chat GPT and have it fix it for you. Yeah, and the effect. An enemy within 2 range of you takes 5 damage. Okay, so she just does damage to, at the start, you know, at the start of each turn, she just has the opportunity to do some extra damage. Then we've got Lord Wraith, the Bruiser. Same thing. If there's at least 1 enemy in range 2 of you, the effect is pay 4 hit points to gain 2 magic cubes. Whatever they're called, skill cubes. Interesting. And then Circle Protection Tank. Enemy started its turn in range 1 of you and declares an attack. So if you're adjacent to an enemy and it decides to attack, then the effect you are shielded for, if an ally is attacked, it flips an attack and you move 2. So he can like passively give allies access to abilities that were on cooldown. So that's kind of cool. In terms of Anariel's abilities, she's got Dimensional Strike, 1 square, 1 enemy. Benefit, you move 2, ignoring terrains. Ignoring terrains. Oh, okay, so she can kind of like teleport. Oh, that could be very interesting. I'm assuming that means that she could move through walls with this. You know, the walls here. She's here. 1, 2. That seems like it could be really powerful. It does 12 damage plus the effect. The effect is deal plus 2 damage per other combatant in range 1 of you, max 4 damage. This excludes the target and you. So basically, if she teleports into a mob of people, then she can deal some extra damage. Up to 4. The Sword of Sigils. 2 squares, 1 enemy. 11 damage plus the effects. Your effect 1, you are protected 3 once per turn. Effect 2, an ally swaps places with an enemy if both are within range 5 of you. An ally swaps places with an enemy. Interesting. So that again is some cool like battlefield control stuff. I like the sound of that. Flames of Justice, 1 square, 1 enemy, 20 damage, plus permanent effect, you are blessed once per turn. Whenever you attack with blessed, if both of your rolls hit, you heal 4. So she has the ability to give herself self-healing basically with a very powerful attack. That's very cool. And it's permanent. I know that the word permanent is used a little oddly in this rule set because they call it out in some of the documentation I already read. But I'd be interested to see if that really would last for an entire round because that could be very powerful. And then Black Hole, 2 squares, 1 enemy. Benefit, you move 4. She's got a lot of movement. 20 damage plus deal 8 damage to all other enemies in range 3 of the target. Then place them in a free square in range 1 of the target. Okay, so she's like, she damages them and then she like pulls them all potentially together. I could have some really cool synergy if I had a mage, which I don't, or a shooter, which I don't. I could imagine a big AoE attack. You could set them up for that. Let's see what Lord Wraith's got. Dark Manipulation. 1 square, 1 enemy. Drawback. You cannot move this turn after this attack resolves. It does 12 damage plus the effect. The effect is move 2 combatants within 5 of you. Okay, so he can, that's very much a pull. That reminds me of the death grip from Wrath of the Lich King, World of Warcraft, where he pulls the guy to him. Hope you like my little animation. It's also got Mind Trap, which hits at 2 squares, 1 enemy. Benefit, you get to move 3 first. It does 12 damage, and then afterwards, name an enemy attack. It cannot be made However, if the enemy that owns it cannot make a primary attack, the named attack can be made and the enemy becomes cursed. Once per turn. So name an enemy attack, it cannot be made. If the enemy that owns it can't make a primary attack, the attack can be made. Okay, so it either stops the enemy from using an ability or it punishes them for using it. And then for specials, he's got Glooming Thoughts. 8 squares, 1 enemy, 20 damage. Plus permanent effect, choose an enemy. It can only target enemies within range 3 of it. Oh wow, that's really powerful. You use that on a boss or something like that? Wow, that's some serious battlefield control. And then Shadow Grasp. 8 squares, 1 enemy. Benefit is +2 to the attack roll. It does 0 damage plus the effect. The effect is pull the target. Pull 7 the target. For each square it moves, transfer 2 hit points from it to you. Interesting. So it doesn't do any damage up front, but it has the potential to heal you for up to 14 and control an enemy. That seems a little underpowered. But I do like the battlefield control. And then we've got our tank. Very cool. Very cool art. Okay, first of all, we've got Retaliation Attack. Got a range of 2 squares. Hits 1 enemy. You get +1 to the attack roll. It does 9 damage. Effect, choose an enemy. The next time it resolves an attack, you run to it and make a basic attack against it. Ends if used. Oh, that's really cool. So that's like a charge, like a warrior charge. I play warrior. Wrath of the Lich King. So whoosh. Or more like an intercept. Guardian Presence. 1 square, 1 enemy, 10 damage. The effects are you are protected 3 once per turn. Any damage that would be dealt to allies in range 5 of you may be dealt to you instead. This damage ignores effects on you. So that's like a very protective ability. Lets you soak damage going to other allies. Lasts for 1 round, I believe. And then its 2 specials: Inspire Strength, 8 squares, 1 ally. Drawback, you take 4 damage. This attack can never be regained or copied. 0 damage plus the effect. Move the target 4, then it makes a special attack. Oh, this target's an ally. Move the target 4, then it makes a special attack. That attack is not spent and does not apply temporary or permanent effects. Oh wow, okay. And if you miss, it heals the target 15. So that just sets up a big turn for somebody who has a lot of raw damage on their base attack, or on their one of their special attacks. So it won't do all the special. Yeah, it does not apply temporary or permanent effects, but you can do a lot of damage with it. And if you miss, you do a lot of healing with it. And then Focus Stance. 2 squares, 1 enemy, 14 damage plus the effect is permanent. You are toughened 3 and expand your passive triggers reach to 2. Interesting. And his passive is you are enemy starts a turn in range 1 of you and declares their attack. So enemy starts a turn in range 2 of you. Declares an attack. You are shielded 4. If an ally is attacked, it flips an attack and you move 2. Okay. That's kind of cool. I think I'm going to go with the Sword Mage. Although I like all of those characters, and that's one of the really cool things about this game is that you have so many choices you can make. Come back, play through it again, or in my second group, because you have to run 2 parties of 4 in this game, maybe I send Lord Wraith off on that party. So we've looked at our controller and our bruiser. Let's take a look at our healer, Nyx from Madara. Her passive is Hope. Trigger, an ally within 3 of you is in 3 of you, first hit of your turn. I don't know what that first hit of your turn means. What the fuck does that mean? If an ally is within 3 of you, on the first hit of your turn, you deal 5 damage, plus 5 damage. Okay, so on your first attack of a turn, if there's an ally within 3 of you, you deal plus 5 damage. So it makes her a little bit stronger in terms of attack as a healer. Special abilities. Pew pew! Weird for a healer. Whatever. 8 squares, 1 enemy. Benefit, forgo your passive power for +3 to an attack roll. Wow. +3 to attack roll. That's really nice. So if you don't have an ally within 3 of you, the passive power is useless. This lets you basically still benefit, because it says, you know, you don't get your passive power, but you're getting bonus to your attack. Does 7 damage plus the effect. The effect is deal. This is Texas Race. 6 damage to an enemy, and you are hastened. So her first ability as a healer is an attack. Second ability is Lifetime. 8 squares, 1 enemy, 7 damage plus effects. The effect is move an ally 3 or choose 1. And it may be and choose 1, I can't recall. You and an ally heals 6, or both of you heal 4. That's a little bit of a group heal, although as a healer she is really weak. Next ability is Oxygen Siphon. 8 squares, 1 enemy. The benefit is +3 to attack roll if you are the combatant closest to the target. It does 22 damage and it applies a permanent effect. Choose an enemy. It ignores all its helpful conditions and takes 3 damage at the end of all of its turn. Okay. That could be very useful. And then the Vitality Juice Box. 8 squares, 1 ally. Drawback is do not apply passive power. Does 0 damage, but the target heals 20, moves 3, and makes a primary attack. And if it misses, you still get to heal for 15. Big heal. And then we have Herodotus the Fallen Titan. Titanic Power. Oh wait, first let's look at his. What is his character? There we go. His passive is Brutality. Trigger is no ally is in range 1 of the target. First hit of your turn. So he wants to be off on his own. The effect is gain 1 mana cube, move an ally 2. Okay. Cool. And then his 2 normal specials, I guess I'll call them. Zepho Strike. 2 squares, 1 enemy. Benefit, ignore all effects applied by enemies on you. 12 damage plus the effect. The effect is deal +3 damage per effect or token applied by enemies on you and allies. Max +6 damage. Interesting. So this lets you push past any debuffs that you have. Or any debuffs that your allies have. The Shipwreck Blow. 1 square, 1 enemy. You get to move 3 before you do it. 10 damage plus deal 6 damage to another enemy in range 2 of you. Just got a cleave effect. Titanic Power. 1 square, 1 enemy. You move 6. Wow, that's a big move. Effect is target takes extra damage equal to the attack's natural roll. Wow, that could do a shitload of damage. So it does 13 damage by default. You roll a 20. That's doing 33 damage. And it's a crit. So I don't even know. I don't even know what the crit rule is. Wow. And you can really charge in to get into position to use it. And then he's got Giant Form. 8 squares. All enemies in a 3x3 area. 13 damage per hit plus effects. The effects are you may run to one of the targets, hit, and permanent. Your primary attacks have +1 range and deal 4 damage to another enemy within 2 of you on a hit. Once per turn. Cool. So he sounds pretty cool, actually. We're going to wrap it up here in a minute, but I just want to see, because on top of those cards, you also get cards for the class. And it looks like we're almost done with this. Got a chapter of the book anyways. Pleased to meet you, Tanaris said. I have nothing to offer but the opportunity to defend your homeland. You likely have loved ones in Fisherman's Wharf, friends, perhaps a house in town. Find in you whatever you need to give meaning to the world. Find in you whatever you need to give meaning to the word heroes and defend your people. Sudra points to a statue near you. The arena of future is protected by power dampeners, which guarantee that only authorized people can use their special abilities on the battlefield. There are many heroes inside and around the arena, struggling to fend off enemies in much higher numbers in the stands. Destroy these dampeners to give us a fighting chance. Grab the following components in Arena of the Contest core box. Fuck you, I don't have the core box. Okay, so here's just breaking down the stuff that is always used, probably used, sometimes used. The only stuff that's always used is the game board, the scenario tiles, D20, chess miniatures, and HP tokens. So I can proxy all that stuff. A fight is about to start. At this point, we recommend you grab the quick start and player aids. They overview the combat rules, which are thoroughly explained in Part 1 of the rulebook, Chapter 1.8. When you are ready to proceed, prepare for the quest. When you're done, go to the quest guide and open Chapter 01, Fisherman's Wharf. It's also, the following applies for each full No Comrade hero. Grab your hero card, miniature, and 4 hero exclusive attacks. Grab 2 level 0 roll-based primary attacks and equip 2 level 0 items. All right, so let's do this. These are the roll-based attacks. And so this is where Nyx is going to get the rest of her healing from. So I might have misspoken about her being a shitty healer. Legendaries or something else. Level 0. Yeah, so you don't really get to choose. Not yet, at least. Savage weapon, 1 square, 1 enemy, 15 damage. 2 squares, 1 enemy, +3 on attack roll, 11 damage. Very cool. For a bruiser. You get Bone Destruction and Vitality Sword. Bone Destruction, 1 square, 1 enemy, 11 damage plus effect. Target is weakened 3 once per turn. Vitality Sword, 2 squares, 1 enemy, 10 damage plus effect. You heal 4. That's awesome. So she's very self-healy. And, you know, obviously if I had known that, maybe I wouldn't have picked her. Maybe I would have picked somebody else if I had known that they were going to be self-healy too. But I like self-heal characters in general, like Death Knights and stuff, so that works out just fine for me. Next up, we've got Holy Ray for the healer. 8 squares, 1 enemy, 6 damage plus effect, heal 7 a hero. So there's your one of your big basic heals. Circle of Healing, 8 squares, 1 enemy, 8 damage plus the effect is heal 2 heroes by 3. And finally, we've got the controller. She's got Cursed Bolt, 8 squares, 1 enemy, 10 damage plus the effect. Target is cursed. And Mind Strike, 8 squares, 2 enemies, 6 damage per hit plus the effect. Move all, and so if you hit, you get to move the enemy. Okay. Two level 0 items. Here we've got our level 0 items. Long swords. Chainmail. Short bows. Leather jackets. Is that really it? And it tells you which classes can use them, so these two get those, and these two get these. Short blow plus 5 damage, leather jacket shielded 5, and then the long sword plus 5 damage, same thing. Just kind of class appropriate. So everybody gets 1 weapon and 1 piece of armor. Grab your roll skill pad, assign 4 level 1 skill tokens to different skills, and then open the main battle board and put your HP token on the number that matches your max HP stat. Go to quest guide and open chapter 0 Fisherman's or chapter 1 Fisherman's Wharf. So these pads are huge, by the way. I'm assuming I don't need these fucking gems anymore. I really hope I'm not wrong about that. Should be workable. This game is a table hog for 4 players. For solo. So I'm 4 level skill 1 tokens. So you got these skill tokens over here. Let's find the ones that are level 1. Assigning them mobility, move to an enemy, or move to an ally and it's hastened. Sacrifice, pay 10 HP, and the enemy takes 10 damage. That's a lot. Lure, pull 6 an enemy. Okay, so that seems like obviously useful for a tank. And that's on your ally's turn. So you can see how this is really cool because there could be a situation where controller is about to get blasted by something in the next enemy turn and she can't get away from it. Bruiser pulls him and then she takes it. And then on enemy turn, before roll, a hero is shielded 3. You heal 1 for each 5 damage this enemy deals this turn. Pay 4 HP, make an 8 range basic attack. Throw, it's called. The controller. 2 charge token, 2 allies charge 1 skill token. Terror, pay 3 hit points per enemy level. It does not pay 3 hit points per enemy level. It does not retaliate. Slip bosses. Huh. Before roll, pay 2 hit points. Target is vulnerable 6. Before roll, target is cursed. Before roll, if the roll is odd, it is distracted 3 and weakened 6. Pay 6 hit points, deal 5 damage to 2 enemies. I'll take that. Brute. Run to an enemy, move it 2. Pay 5 hit points. An enemy takes 7 damage. Run 5 to an enemy. So bash, this says run to an enemy without a range. So that's really powerful. Like it zip across the entire map. Run 5 to an enemy, it takes 1 damage for each step you ran. I like that too. I like the mobility. This one just does 3 damage to an enemy. That seems a little weak. Defy, start a turn, pay 3 hit points, pull 2, and deal 4 damage to an enemy. That seems nice. Pay 5 hit points, and enemy takes 7 damage. That could sway an entire fight. That could like finish a quest. And for the healer, deal 2 damage to an enemy and dispel 2. Pay 2 hit points, heal 4 to an ally. It is hastened. I will take that. After roll, heal 7 the ally. Its target is shielded 5. Heal 7 the ally. Its Credit issue for clemency, it's called. And then heal 3 a hero. Pay 5 hit points. 4 the enemy roll. Hero is protected 3. Then I'll take clemency. And that is it for chapter 1 of Adventure Chapter A, Fisherman's Wharf. So in the next video, we'll pick it back up. We will proceed to the quest guide and open Chapter 01, Fisherman's Wharf. And that's where we'll see the setup for the actual mission and such. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it was informative. You know, there's a little bit of clunkiness here, but it's not too terrible. And everything else about the game is freaking awesome. So I'm willing to forgive a little bit of clunkiness to get started, especially since there was an intention behind it, which was to push you into these different books so that you learned what the books were for. So let me know what you think in the comments. That's all I have for now, and I will talk to you later.